Picking up on the ranking member's comment, I hope that our deliveries to Ukraine are sufficient to deal with what may be a very long-term guerrilla war. We have the Ukrainian government controls the Ukraine-Poland border entries today. There's no assurance that's true 3 or 4 weeks from now. So you have 3 or 4 weeks to get in enough weapons to support a 10-year guerrilla war, if that's what it takes to drive Russia out. One hopes that it doesn't take that long. But Russia, the Soviet Union, 100 months in Afghanistan, 100 casualties a month, and then we know what happened. Turning to the purpose of today's hearing, I'll ask Secretary Sherman, but the rest. Other administrations have taken the position that the War Powers Act is a nice thing, kind of not a a non-binding resolution, something that, it's good if it happens. Others say it's a law. As a matter of fact, that has been the position of Congress since we passed the law over at administration's veto. Does this administration regard the law as binding on them? Madam Secretary?
This administration certainly supports both the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the United States. Is
the War Powers Act a constitutional law binding on the administration, or do you think that the Constitution prevents it from being binding on you?
I think the War Powers Act is very critical, and I defer to my legal counsel.
Legal counsel.
Thank you.
Because I know where Senator Biden was. Where is President Biden on this?
Thank you, Congressman. Obviously,
this is a yes or no. I have limited time.
We apply. Certainly, we act
consistently. Please, filibusterings. That's for the Senate.
We act consistently with
yes or no. Is it your legal? I know you believe in following the law, and I know the Constitution is also the law of the country. Is this law constitutional and binding on the president, or are we spending our time arguing about whether to authorize something that you think you're authorized to do, whether we authorize it or not?
Congressman?
Please pull the mic closer to you.
Sorry. Congressman, I have not, during this administration, had an opportunity to talk to my colleagues about that very question. It just hasn't come up.
How would you come to a hearing about whether to change an authorization to use military force if you don't have an opinion on whether such authorization is necessary or of any legal consequence?
Congressman, let me be very clear. We hope and want to work with the Congress to revise and replace the authorization.
Right, but if you take the position that you get to do whatever you want, whether we authorize it or not, or you refuse to, or you refuse, well, if you dance around the issue of whether you need an authorization, then this is a discussion about something you will treat as a non-binding resolution. I'm sure you love all our non-binding resolutions, and you like to work with us about them, but if you won't recognize the constitutionality of the War Powers Act, you have a imperial presidency approach consistent with prior administrations.
Congressman, on the existing 2001 AUMF, we have consistently reported what we have done. We have consistently
there are many non-binding resolutions that you comply with, but you don't think you have to. Let me go. Since in 2012, I authored a provision that is now part of the every appropriations bill that says you cannot spend money in contravention of the War Powers Act. We've had a former Attorney General, Republican Attorney General, sit right there and say that with that provision, you must comply with the War Powers Act, or you're basically just stealing money and not using it for what Congress has allowed it to be spent for. Have you looked at that provision?
I have not looked at that provision.
Well, since if Congress appropriates money and says you can't spend it for something, and you do that, that's a violation of criminal law. So I hope that you would look at it before you violate it. And with that, I'd simply say we ought to be repealing the 2001 AUMF. There's no reason to replace it. There are many reasons why you might want to deploy troops into hostile situations, and if you do, please come here and ask. You have 60 days to do that, and we ought to restore the Constitution
Gentleman's time
here
has
today.
expired.